You're watching ABC10 Plus This Week.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Thomas. You're watching ABC10 Plus This Week. Election Day 2024 is in the books. We look ahead to what the future of the nation and California could look like under a second Trump administration. From the plans here in California to immigrant deportation fears and more. ABC10 Plus This Week starts now.
Your voice, your vote. Let's go with our guy, Steve Swat, political analyst. Steve, you've been visiting with us 4 weeks now. So I would ask you this to start off this morning. The elephant in the room, polling. Pretty accurate on Kamala Harris. They predicted all the polls day before the election, predicted Harris at 48%. That's about what she got. But they predicted Trump at 47%. He's at 51%. How could this be so off?
Well, first of all, one quick mention about polls. Elmo Roper was a leading pollster in the 1930s, and he said at that time, any fool can take a poll, but many do. And so you got to take these polls with a grain of salt.
But these are conservative and liberal polls. This is all polls. It's not just skewed by one party.
In many cases, polling is more an art than a science.
Okay.
In terms of Trump last night, I mean, they registered many new voters, and they all came to the polls in the hinterlands in some of these swing states. And so that was very important. He really overperformed in terms of support from Latinos, but also from those under 30. And so there were a lot of those folks were missed in the polling, and they showed up in pretty big numbers.
Missed in the polling. Okay, there you go. So women have likely reached a major milestone in California politics. What is that about?
That is about the fact that for the first time in California history, California women have reached or exceeded slightly parity in the California Senate.
Okay.
Right now we're looking at 21, perhaps 22 of the 40 members, and very close to parity in the Assembly. And that is amazing, since in the Senate, California didn't have its first woman senator until 1976, 126 years after statehood. Now they have a majority in the Senate.
What has California done in terms of the House of Representatives? Obviously, the Republicans will control the Senate. They will control the presidency. The House of Representatives still in play. What has California's role been in that?
Yeah, it's still in play. The Republicans have picked up a few seats nationally. Here in California, we've talked about 6 toss-up seats for the House. Right now, Republicans are winning 5 of them.
Okay.
But they're very close margins. Obviously, it'll take a couple weeks probably before those are final.
Okay. So we have now California versus the nation in terms of our political setup. Gavin Newsom against Donald Trump. Will Newsom and the state of California be sort of the resistance to what happened in the United States last night?
We were after the 2016 election, and the Attorney General's office is already preparing for all sorts of stuff. For example, what if there's a national abortion ban? California will want to fight that. What if there is restrictions on the abortion medication or our gun laws? How do you protect 1.8 million undocumented immigrants in California who are now being threatened with deportation?
Right.
And they are really a centerpiece of California's agricultural industry.
What can Newsom do, though, if the president wants to send ICE in and take immigrants out? What can Newsom do?
You have to go to court, first
Right.
of all. California filed, 100 or so lawsuits after the 2016 election. And so California's Attorney General and Governor Newsom, I'm sure, are thinking right now, where are we going to go to court? Where are we going to challenge some of these issues?
Wow, a lot to come here as Donald Trump has won re-election, sort of, for President of the United States. One last question. Are you surprised that at this point that Trump has taken all the swing states?
I think everybody's surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, because of the polling. The polling showed him so close.
Yeah.
And yet his ground game really worked.
It did, indeed. Steve Swat, political analyst who's been with us all week long. Steve, thank you.
Now, here in California, Governor Newsom and the state attorney general are preparing for a fight. Tonight, Newsom announced a special session when the state legislature convenes in its next session on December 2nd. And ABC10's Becca Hotbecker joins us live in studio with more on the governor's plans.
Alex, in this proclamation issued today, Governor Newsom says the extraordinary session will be essentially focused on enabling California to challenge and defend itself from actions taken by the Trump administration. Now, today we heard from the state attorney general and those who call this special session political theater.
Governor Gavin Newsom says he is shoring up California's defenses against an incoming federal administration that has threatened the state on multiple fronts.
I know there is a lot of fear and anxiety.
California Attorney General Rob Bonta, speaking at a news conference Thursday in front of San Francisco's iconic Golden Gate Bridge, said progress will prevail and California is ready for the fight.
Whatever the financial situation, when we have full frontal assaults on who we are, what we stand for, our people, our resources, we will fight back. We will punch back. We will push back. Period, full stop, end of story.
It's why Newsom is calling a special session on December 2nd to safeguard California values and fundamental rights in the face of an incoming Trump administration. The special session will focus on bolstering California legal resources to protect civil rights, reproductive freedom, climate action, and immigrant families.
You can be sure that as California Attorney General, if Trump attacks your rights, I'll be there.
This is really a smoke and mirrors headline.
State Senate Minority Leader Brian Jones says Newsom should be focusing on the real and pressing issues facing California rather than fighting Washington.
We have a homeless and fentanyl crisis that Prop 36 is trying to fix, and we're going to work with the governor as much as he'll work with us to make sure that Prop 36 is implemented and done according to the will of the voters, like he promised a couple weeks ago.
Republican Assemblymember Joe Patterson agrees.
Believe it or not, the governor could actually give an olive branch to Donald Trump and see how they could actually work together to improve the lives of Californians. Instead, he's choosing not to. And just 48 hours after Trump was elected, he's already announcing publicly to the nation he'd rather go to war than build a bridge.
California Republicans say Newsom's special session and his vow to fight the Trump administration only serve to boost the governor's prowess on the national stage, as they believe he is setting up a run for president in 4 years.
He still has 2 more years in his governorship here in California. Can he please just do his job here in California and help us run California instead of continuing to run it into the ground?
Newsom, in a statement, says the freedoms we hold dear in California are under attack, and we won't sit idle. California has faced this challenge before, and we know how to respond. We are prepared, and we will do everything necessary to ensure Californians have the support and resources they need to thrive.
Now, you may recall for the special session earlier this fall dealing with gas prices, the leaders of the state Assembly and Senate were split on whether to hold the session in the first place. But both say they're in support of the special session Newsom announced today. Alex?
Well, we don't know what the special session will look like just yet. During Donald Trump's first 4 years as president, California sued him about every 12 days on average, according to Cal Matters reporting. I want to go ahead and bring in Kevin Johnson, a professor and former dean of UC Davis School of Law, to talk about what the next presidency could look like. Talk about the landscape and the legal challenges California faced in the past under the Trump administration.
Well, one of the very big issues were immigration raids of workplaces, convenience stores like 7-Elevens, apprehensions in courthouses. That was an incredibly controversial issue. What ICE was doing during the Trump administration was sending immigration and customs enforcement officers to the courthouse and picking up immigrants who were here unlawfully or might otherwise be subject to removal. That led then Chief Justice of California, Tani Cantil-Sakyui, to write a letter to, among others, the then Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and ask him to stop interfering with the California justice system by apprehending immigrants in the courthouse.
Environmental rollbacks. What did it look like in the past, and then what can we expect under a second administration?
Well, I think that President Trump previously made it clear that things like drill, baby, drill when it comes to oil. The last Trump administration withdrew the United States from the climate change accord entered in Paris a few years back. And I think that kind of point of view about climate change and what should be done differs from that which emanates from Sacramento. I think there's going to be a lot of push and pull when it comes to federal climate change policies and state climate change policies. I think that we are going to see some negotiations when it comes to environmental, gun policies, abortion, all kinds of things, health benefits, health care. That's normal. I think it's important that we try to work together and work through these things.
Can California afford to financially take on these legal battles, and who pays for all of this?
Well, the California Attorney General's office is, in effect, the largest law firm in the state of California, and they're constantly deciding their priorities and how to sue, who to sue, and when to sue. I know that in the previous Trump administration, in the California Attorney General's office, some attorneys were reorganized, some divisions were changed to focus on the priorities of the Attorney General. So I think that we're not going to see California hiring a bunch of high-priced law firms to defend these actions or bring these actions. We're going to be reallocating the many attorneys that we have in the Attorney General's office to address the issues.
And new tonight, there is growing concern about Donald Trump's immigration policy and the possible impact on migrant families. The president-elect says they plan mass deportations as one of their first priorities.
ABC 10's Devin Truby talked with legal experts today about what's next. Devin.
Now, Laura, the Biden administration says they're preparing for a mass influx at the border before the inauguration. Governor Newsom held that special session that Chris mentioned to discuss the future of fighting the administration. But for the everyday person, the message is simple. Attorneys know they don't know what's coming, but they do know they need you to start the process now.
President-elect Donald Trump, speaking of mass deportation and immigration as a top priority, has many scared of what happens next. For Sacramento immigration attorney Julian Sanchez, he says based on Trump's past term, they're anticipating the end of temporary protected status, end of DACA, and issues for those with a criminal history.
Consult with an attorney to see if there's anything they're eligible for. If they have any criminal offenses, any criminal history in the past, consult with an attorney. See whether that's something that they should try to address, maybe vacate it.
Sanchez has an increase in calls from concerned clients. Equal Justice Law Group says this week they've seen calls about immigration double.
People are panicking.
For the past 2 months, they've seen changes in court. The Department of Homeland Security appealed judges' decisions to grant asylum, so that person's status is not complete until the appeal is done. Doris said she went from appearing twice per case to now multiple times.
But we're seeing delays in biometrics, which tells us that Department of Homeland Security is taking a closer look at the biometrics of asylum seekers. There's just a higher standards right now, I would say, for the evidence, right, and preponderance of evidence that one must provide for asylum cases. So
the legal experts advise to consult with an attorney now so the application process can be well underway before inauguration. Carry a copy of your claim with your unique confirmation number with you always, so if you do get stopped, you have proof you're working on your status.
ABC 10 spoke with the Mexican consulate, who said they have no comment at this time. Chris.
Devin, thank you.
I do want to get to our political strategist, though. Right now, we have Tamika Hamilton back with us once again. She did get some sleep. Well, a little bit, right? A little bit. And we have our Democrat here, Roger Salazar. Thank you both so much for being here.
No problem.
Look, as we wait to, continue to track these House races to be called, I do want to talk about the balance of power here. Tamika, I'm going to start with you. Mm-hmm. With a Republican-controlled Senate, possibly a Republican-controlled House, and then a conservative majority Supreme Court, what happens to the concept of checks and balances at this point?
I am very optimistic that the promise of having those checks and balances and the promise of people coming together and working across the aisle is going to happen, regardless of how the House races pan out. And so I think it's just really important for us to, again, look at the reality of things, and the voters want that. So I think it will happen.
And what about for you?
Yeah, I know, and I think it's very important for us. Again, we're going to keep an eye on those House races, especially those ones here in the Valley here in California. But we really, again, for Democrats, I think it's going to be important for them to get as close as they can in the House. Even if you've got a 1 or 2 vote margin, you're able to peel off a couple of moderate Republicans to keep those checks and balances in place, because you do want to be able to make sure that he just doesn't run roughshod. I mean, you want to be able to have a president who's also going to take into account you want a little bit of breaks on those sorts of things, at least from the Democratic perspective.
And my next question, Roger, I want to start with you. I do want to talk about the economy. We know that this was, if not the biggest issue that brought voters out, the top issue. We saw it spike this morning. What do you think the economy is going to look like moving forward from here on out?
Well, look, again, I think the Biden and Harris administration have done a good job, of setting this economy up to get to the point where it's starting to spike now. They unfortunately did not do a good job of telling people and translating that and talking to voters about the issues that they care about the most. So I think the economy is going to do fine for the time being. Now, what Trump does with it, if he decides to go the tariff path, that's going to change the economy overall and could end up hurting people. So hopefully he doesn't go that route.
But you don't think the Democratic voters heard?
No, they didn't, and I think we did. We as Democrats did not do a very good job of talking to people about bread and butter issues, and we got to figure out a better way to talk to working class voters about the types of things that they care about, rather than talking about ancillary issues.
Tamika, what do you think the economy is going to look like in the future?
If it's anything like the Trump presidency, I think that it's going to be more positive. I mean, just like we talked about the bread and butter issues in the last segment, it's just so important that, again, we get back to the reality of things, and that was the reason why Donald Trump, that's one of the major reasons why he won the election, because of that nostalgia, thinking about, the fact that eggs and gas and all those things weren't, triple the price it is today. So I'm really confident that they'll do everything they can to put money back in people's pockets.
And I have another question I want to ask both of you. Tamika, I want to start with you. Donald Trump has promised sweeping action in this second administration, including proposed tariffs of 10 to 20% on foreign goods. How do you think that this could play a role in the future of the economy?
Well, again, it goes back to, people having confidence that, him being a businessman and him going, bringing the economy to the place that it was back 4 years ago. I think that with that, plus taxes, tax cuts for the middle class, no taxes on tips, they're pretty optimistic that he'll be able to do that. Again, that's why he was able to get elected this term.
Yeah, and I just think that tariffs are a terrible idea. I think, again, there's a time and place for tariffs, but if that's going to be your economic starter, I just don't think that's going to work. I think it's going to, those tariffs are not, I think Donald Trump thinks that tariffs are things that, that other countries pay. It's the people who purchase things here that pay them, and they pass that cost on to the consumer, so goods are going to be higher. So, again, from my perspective, it's just it's a bad approach.
Yeah, I mean, everything's not a one-stop shop. I think that at the end of the day, there's going to be a combination of things that are necessary to bring us back to the place that we were a couple of years ago, and people feeling confident. So, again, I think it's really important to just see the future and think that it's a possibility that American people are going to be satisfied.
Your voice, your vote. From the fight for the White House to our state and local races, a historic night with team coverage and analysis to keep you informed. Stay with ABC 10 for the latest election updates on air and streaming now.
Tonight, a lot of questions are surfacing regarding the upcoming second Trump presidency.
Yeah, one of the questions now getting a lot of attention is, can the president serve a third term? ABC 10's Brandon Rittiman is answering your questions.
We're seeing this question from a lot of people today in the wake of Donald Trump winning his second term as president. How many terms can a president serve? 2. The answer is 2. 4-year terms. Very clear. It's in the Constitution. It's the 22nd Amendment, right after the amendment that legalized booze again. Now, the history is fascinating. This started as a tradition, actually, with our first president, George Washington. He decided to step down after 2 terms, not run for a third one. That tradition got us through the 1800s, well into the 20th century, until in 1939, just towards the end of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's second term as president, the Nazis invaded Poland. The whole world went to war again. There was no law against it. And so FDR decided to run again for a third term. Then he won a fourth, died early in the 4th term. Germany surrendered within the next month. A couple years later, Congress decided, let's not do this whole 3rd and 4th term thing again. And they drafted the 22nd Amendment. Now, could President Trump undo the 22nd Amendment? Not easily. Takes a 2/3 vote of Congress or a constitutional convention, which has to be called by 2/3 of the state legislatures. And even then, the amendment still has to be ratified by 3/4 of the states, and that process can take years. In the case of the 22nd Amendment, ratification didn't happen until 4 years after Congress put forth the amendment. Kind of messes up your plans if you're trying to stay in the White House. Donald Trump has repeatedly flirted with the idea of staying in office longer than 2 terms. At the end of his second term, though, he would be 82 years old. 1 year older than Joe Biden was this election cycle, when his age became the factor that caused him to drop out of this year's race.
Brendan Ritterman, thank you. If you have any election-related questions you'd like answered, head over to our website, abc10.com/vote. There you'll find our survey where you can tell us what else you want to know about the election.
And now, as ballots are still being counted, there are uncertain and mixed results for Democrats. ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen is looking at the count so far here in California and asking what might happen in the coming days. Jeannie?
Well, Alex, some political experts believe it's still too early to say whether or not California is experiencing a red wave. However, data so far shows a shift, especially with voters in minority communities.
I definitely think that it is a surprising result.
With Republicans leading the race right now in the Senate, House, and Donald Trump projected to be the next president, voters seem to have made a statement nationally. But political analyst Paul Mitchell says it's still too early to say that's the case here in California.
Statewide, we're expecting to see a blue shift as we get closer to full complete count. And so to say now, like, hey, it's a red wave would be premature.
Mitchell believes with more than 16 million ballots still to be counted, California should see a spike in Democratic representation.
I would say odds are Democrats are going to pick up a couple of these House seats, even though literally at the moment we're talking, they are behind in all of them.
Mitchell says the ballots that have yet to be counted are from a specific demographic.
I think we're going to see more of the late vote comprise of younger voters, renters, minority voters, and those are going to break more Democratic.
One of the key groups in California the GOP managed to swing are the Latino voters. Mitchell believes that has been fundamental to the success of the Trump campaign.
Registration rates for Latinos have gotten more Republican. Now, they've gone from 17 or 18% Republican to 21 or 22% Republican.
While Mitchell says the majority of minority voters in California are still voting Democratic, he believes the Democrats made key mistakes during this election cycle, starting with President Joe Biden.
Democrats were saying, Trump is bad and no, Biden, he can do this. And then 100 days out, switched and said, oh, well, we mean Kamala. Well, now we guess Biden can't do it.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders also chiming in, speaking about this today, saying in part, he's not surprised the working class has abandoned the Democratic Party, adding the American people are angry and want change, while the Democratic leadership continues to defend the status quo. But ultimately, Mitchell says the next few days will show California's continued support for the Democratic Party.
That late vote looks to be very progressive and very Democratic leaning, and will definitely shift these races 2, 3, 4, 5 points towards the Democratic candidates.
Because of Kamala Harris's loss, experts believe this is the time for many potential presidential candidates to start planning for the 2028 election. Experts believe Governor Gavin Newsom is definitely on that list.
Thanks for watching ABC 10 Plus this week. Keep in mind, we're here 24/7 on the free ABC 10 Plus app. You can get your election news, local news, and weather anytime, anywhere. I'm Chris Thomas. We'll see you next time.
Your voice, your vote. From the fight for the White House to our state and local races, a historic night with team coverage and analysis to keep you informed. Stay with ABC 10 for the latest election updates on air and streaming now.
Thanks for watching ABC 10 Plus. And now that you're here, why don't we take a look around and see what else is here? The very first tile on your left is always going to be streaming 24/7. You can find us adjacent to that, breaking news if it's there. And then right next to that, a replay of the most recent newscast. Whether it's ABC 10 Morning News at 5, 6, or beyond, it's going to be there. The forecast beyond that, and then right beyond that, the news that matters the most. Now that you know the basic tiles, let's go up to the top and take a deeper dive into news. We have every single newscast that you would need, including To the Point with Alex Bell, taking a deeper dive into the issues. Beyond that, ABC 10 Morning News at 5 and 6 and 11, the evening shows as well. Below that, you can watch the top stories from To the Point. Under that, Dollars and Cents, where you can learn how to navigate this challenging economy. And below that, you can watch our award-winning ABC 10 Special Investigations, where we hold the powerful accountable. Going into weather, Look, it's the 10-day forecast, getting you ready for the weekend and beyond. Beyond that, sports. I know you care about the Sacramento Kings. We have the most comprehensive guide to anything, everything Kings in the locker room and on the court. We have it. Below that, I know you care about the San Francisco 49ers. We can't mention Bay Sports without talking about the Oakland A's. We have that too. What's super exciting, I know you care about high school sports. You'll never find a more comprehensive guide and team dedicated to high school sports. Backing out again, come up to the top and join me on Verify. I'm super excited about this. Our experts are checking the facts, verifying the truth for you. Jump up now to shows. Very excited about this. Oh, look, it's Take a Look. This is my show. I love movies, and if you love movies or streaming shows, whether it's on screens this big, or this big, it's Take a Look. Recently went behind the scenes, sat down with Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix to talk about Joker 2. I love the movie, and oh, I just heard you shout you hate the movie. Jump in, we talk about it on this show. Other shows, Bartell's Backroads, go up and down the state of California, tank of gas getaways, one fuel cell getaway, like places like the Toy Museum. This is what kids did before they had screens. Over here, the Moaning Caverns of Calaveras County, one of the most coveted caves in all of California. You know, watching this show, I discovered there's a cave that could fit the entire Statue of Liberty in your own backyard. You'll find about that and more with Bartell's Backroads. Down below that, To the Point. It is one of my favorite newscasts because they talk about news with Alex Bell the way you talk about news. It's conversational, but in-depth at the same time. Below that, Your California Life. Love this show. Whether it's entertainment, food, beverage, lifestyle, it's there. Desiree Shepherd hosts and does an amazing job. So there you have it. It's ABC10 Plus, the app. What do you need? We heard you and we got it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for streaming.
Hey, Bob, here's dinner.
Thanks, Dad.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Good.
Why are you not eating, Dad?
I had a really big lunch, a dinosaur-sized lunch.
I knew.
Yeah, and I'm not hungry.
No parent should have to choose who gets to eat. Go to abc10.com/standagainsthunger and make a donation today. Your voice, your vote. From the fight for the White House to our state and local races, a historic night with team coverage and analysis to keep you informed. Stay with ABC10 for the latest election updates on air and streaming now.